Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company of the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Here today, loaded show. We got the Titans of the draft. Of course, we're going to hit on that. We've got a bunch of stuff. Again, more Ty Simpson stuff coming out of Alabama's Pro Day. We'll hit in on that. I did see a topic today on ESPN that just blew my mind. I was shocked by it. I guess it actually wasn't a topic on ESPN. It was a report on ESPN that just absolutely blew my mind. We'll get to that here in a second. Then, of course, North Carolina's open. Vanderbilt's coach could be involved there. I've got a thought on that. And, we'll end with just a tiny little baseball at the very, very end. But, of course, we start with the draft and the Preds. Of course, Kelsey says, how about the Preds? We for sure will get into the Predators today. I do want to tell you about our presenting sponsor. That is Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Hiller has been in business since 1990. They are family owned and operated with 100% satisfaction. If happy you will be, or the service is free. I know this because I use Hiller at my own home. If I've ever got an issue, an HVAC issue, a plumbing issue at Hiller, I go right to the website, right on my phone. I pull it up, and I'm like, boom, get out here tomorrow, and they are. Learn more by visiting happyhiller.com. Professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians who come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today here on the program. TDG says happy Wednesday. Hit the like button on the way in and tell a friend. That's right. Get in the comments. It's good for the algorithm. Get in the comments. So on and so forth. Okay. Number one. I was listening to Mel Kiper Jr. talk about Field Yates' latest mock draft on the First Draft podcast. And I'm not going to say this blew my mind, but this was kind of the first piece of information that I heard in a while that made me really stop and think about the Titans with the 4th overall pick. Mel Kiper Jr. on the First Draft podcast said, the key team is Arizona. Of course, they pick at 3 because they pick one spot ahead of Tennessee. I cannot believe, based on grade, Mel Kiper Jr. says, that an offensive tackle is going to go at 3 just based on grade. You said when I had Monroe Freeling at 6, that's probably too high based on grade. And it really is based on my grade, your grade, and everybody else's grade. So right there, we'll stop right there. Mel Kiper Jr. is saying there is no offensive tackle going with the 3rd overall pick. If you see a mock draft that has Mauioga, the right tackle out of Miami, going with the 3rd pick to Arizona, Mel says, forget about it. Mel continues. There's nobody going to tell me that one of those offensive linemen is 3, 2, or 1 in this draft. They're not. So if you're Arizona, trade out of there. Let somebody go up and get ahead of Tennessee. Either Sonny Styles or Jeremiah Love. I think this pick will be impacted by 3 somehow, some way. The selection of Tennessee is going to be impacted by their trade up to the Arizona spot. Now, I don't know exactly where Mel Kiper is getting his information. And for the record, neither do a lot of you. But I talked to somebody yesterday, somebody who played in the NFL, who's very connected in the league, who I think is probably one of the best analysts out there. And I talked to him yesterday and I said, hey, do you buy this Ty Simpson stuff at number 2? And he said, no. And he goes, there's too many of these big dogs in the draft world talking about Mel and Daniel Jeremiah and Todd McShay. He goes, these draft gurus, they don't have everybody's board. They don't know boards specifically, but they talk to the teams. Now, that doesn't mean that they share the opinion of every team, but they talk to the teams. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I mean, Mel Kiper was asked yesterday about Dan Orlovsky's take that Ty Simpson's better than Fernando Mendoza. And Mel Kiper just brushed it off and was like, not on my board, and I haven't talked to anybody else out there who thinks that. So Mel's talking to somebody. And I think the sentiment is the draft starts at 3. We know Mendoza's going 1, and we know that the Jets are taking either Reese or Bailey at number 2. And so right now, Arizona holds the 3rd pick. But what Mel said really got me, and it really got me for a couple of reasons. Number one, as I said, I think Mel Kiper Jr. is talking to somebody. So when Mel Kiper Jr. sits there and says, I mean, I just based on grade, on my grade, your grade, all the other grades, Mel Kiper saying an offensive tackle is not going number 3. No team is drafting a tackle at 3 for need. The second reason is because Arizona needs everything. Arizona needs a quarterback. Arizona, and I know they signed a running back in free agency, but they could probably use another running back. Arizona needs another wide receiver opposite Marvin Harrison Jr. Let me tell you that. Arizona does not need a tight end. Arizona needs help on the offensive line. Arizona needs defense. Arizona needs everything. And Arizona's general manager, Monty Ossenfort, has proven in the past when Arizona needed everything, he'll do whatever it takes to trade out of the 3rd spot. He did that with Houston, bartering with Will Anderson, leading up to the 2023 draft. And remember, it wasn't just Houston that Monty Ossenfort was talking to. He was talking to you too. You were going to move up to number 3 in order to get C.J. Stroud. And then the cat got out of the bag and Houston decided to take Stroud at 2. And then they made the deal to go get Anderson. So Ossenfort's history, the fact that Arizona needs everything, which means they need picks, and the fact that at that 3 spot, it's going to be, if there's a trade up, one of 2 things. Either the rest of the league looks at the draft the way that I look at the draft, where I see Mendoza, Bailey or Reese, and then everybody else. Love, Downs, Styles, all are really high-end blue chip players, but they don't play premium positions. Bain has short arms. Carnell Tate is slow. Or some team loves Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles, and they better jump the Titans to get to number 4 or to get to number 3 to keep the Titans from taking that guy at number 4. I wonder which one it is when it comes to a trade. As far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at it through this lens. I'm assuming that when you pick it 4, Bailey and Reese will both be gone. So Mendoza is going to be gone. We know that. You don't need Mendoza. You have a quarterback. Reese or Bailey going number 2. FanDuel right now says the odds are it's going to be Arvell Reese. So let's say Reese goes 2. I expect Bailey to go 3, which means you're on the clock at 4. And as I've said, it's either going to be Bain, Styles, or Love. Now, I am bothered by Bain's arms, maybe more so than other people. In that instance, I would take Jeremiah Love. I would not be upset with Sonny Styles. Again, I am skeptical when it comes to Ruben Bain. I looked it up today, like the difference between Nick Bosa and Ruben Bain. And they weigh about the same. I think Bain is 266 and Bosa's 262. But Bosa is an inch and a half taller, almost 2 inches taller than Ruben Bain. He's got bigger arms. He's got longer arms. He's got bigger hands. And I'm like, he's just not, from a measurable standpoint, he's just not a high-end edge rusher. And I can't ignore that with the 4th pick. The Patriots just ignored it with the 4th pick last year. And even though Will Campbell may have the heart of a lion, I think we still sit here today and we wonder if the New England Patriots have their left tackle. So Personally, I would take Bane out of it. I think they're going to take Bane. But then I was thinking about what Mel said. If you want Styles, you want Love, you don't know who Tennessee's going to take, you have to get to 3. And then I started trying to connect some dots. And here's the one place as far as the draft media where I feel like I'm pretty good. And that is, I've seen enough college football to get a pretty good idea for some of these players. And the guys I don't know, I'll go back and watch a college game of. Now, I'm not going to go back and dissect the film and everything else, but I will watch a college game. For instance, I watched Miami play Ohio State when it happened, and then I watched it again a couple of weeks ago. And I didn't really feel Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese in that game. I felt Ruben Bain, and I felt Akeem Mesidor, and I felt Keontae Scott in that game. But I go back to just having a good enough idea of these guys. So when all of a sudden I hear something like Dan Orlovsky just taking his pants off for Ty Simpson, I ignore it. Because even though one guy on ESPN might be obsessed with Ty Simpson, I know Ty Simpson's not that good. That goes for some of these other guys too. So when it comes to guys in the draft and all of a sudden you're going to try to convince me, oh my God, Tennessee, they love this guy. Oh my God, Tennessee, they love that guy. I'm skeptical because they didn't tell me that. And when it's somebody off the wall, I just kind of don't buy some of it. So I think sometimes being detached allows me to kind of get a feel for what may actually go down or who's actually doing what, instead of being like Todd McShay, who's sitting there in the trenches talking to teams and writing, if the Colts don't take Will Levis at 4, I don't know what they're going to do. And he said that because the Colts told him that. The Colts wanted people to know that. So I think about where the Titans sit with the 4th pick and what we've seen so far. And I think the message the Titans want out there is that they are not interested in Jeremiah Love. The interest in Jeremiah Love came from Matthew Berry, the fantasy guy turned betting guy on NBC Sports. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's like how ESPN has started hiring TikTok influencers and listening to them over Adam Schefter. So Matthew Berry says they love Jeremiah Love. But PK, and I know PK's talking to Brinker in my heart, and Schefter, they both seem pretty adamant that it's not going to be Jeremiah Love with the 4th pick. Well, again, when somebody tells you it's not going to be that person, then sometimes maybe it means that's who it's going to be. And then when it comes to Sonny Styles, we haven't heard a peep from the Titans as far as that's concerned. Now, at the Combine, Robert Saleh said absolutely glowing things about both Jeremiah Love and Ruben Bain. I think the thing Saleh said was the tape is the tape. And I don't, his arms may be whatever they are, but the tape is the tape, and the tape is very good. And I was a little surprised to see Robert Saleh talking directly about a prospect like that. And so I wondered, does Robert Saleh want it out there that the Titans like Ruben Bain? Does Robert Saleh want it out there that the Titans like Jeremiah Love? Or did nobody ask him about Sonny Styles, and that's why we don't have anything from Robert Saleh about Sonny Styles? And this is what I wonder about the Titans. And you know my rule. I do not get anybody in trouble for something before it happens. Last year was pretty obvious. The Titans were going to take Cam Ward, and they didn't have to hide it because they had the number 1 pick. This year, I can't totally get a read. At the Combine, I thought it was going to be Jeremiah Love because Twitter wants the Titans to draft Jeremiah Love. And as I've said, I think the owner is on Twitter, or somebody in the owner's ear is on Twitter way too much, and that influences decisions. And because Jeremiah Love does fit a need. Then after the combine, PK was like, I'm not buying it. Adam Schefter's like, I'm not buying it. And so that has moved me more into the Bailey Boehner-Reese territory. In free agency, the Titans didn't really pursue an impact edge rusher. They added a bunch of Scarbinis and John Franklin Myers, who's really more of a DT in this system. And so that made me think, because they weren't interested in Hendrickson, there wasn't any talk about them going after Maxx Crosby, they weren't in on Jalen Phillips, they weren't in on Odafe Owe, it made me think, okay, it's probably Bailey or Reese that they want, and they'll take one or the other. The problem is I think it's pretty likely both guys are gone at pick number 4. So I don't know what they're going to do. And one thing I worry about with an organization, and this is what I said when I go, hey, I'm not going to get somebody in trouble for something they haven't done yet. But one thing I do worry about is when you have so many people as a part of the operation, and they love to brag about this. They'll talk about how many Super Bowls they've won, as if we attribute the New England Patriots Super Bowls with Brady and Belichick to Dave Ziegler. But with Dave Ziegler and Reggie McKenzie and Chad Brinker and Dan Sagany and Mike Borgonzi and Robert Saleh and Brian Dable all having a hand in personnel, I do wonder how difficult it's going to be to keep that jar shut. I used to ask the old man about how he'd handle that. And when it came to this time of the year, you know what he told me? He said he'd try to stay away from the owner. I said, what do you mean? You try to stay away from the owner? He goes, the owner's the only person that you can't fire who has no recourse if they have a couple of beverages and spout their feelings to a local reporter or another owner. And he said, hey, I knew who my leakers inside the building were. And I asked him one time, I said, how do you find out who a leaker is? He goes, oh, it's easy. I tell you I'm drafting the running back. I tell you I'm drafting the tight end. I tell you I'm drafting the receiver. And whatever I see in the paper, I know who's leaking. And in this case, I guess it would be whatever I see on Twitter, I know who's leaking. But the Titans have been relatively leak-free in this new administration. So I was taken aback by what Mel Kiper said when he said that the draft starts at 3 and it is not going to be an offensive tackle. Because I don't know about you, but I think there's a part of me, because I'm so afraid that they're going to fuck it up by taking Bain in his short arms. There's a part of me that's thinking, please take the tackle at 3. Please take the tackle at 3. Please take the tackle at 3. Tackle, tackle, tackle. And Mel Kiper's like, that's not happening. But with Tennessee, if you want Sonny Styles, you better get up there and get him. If you want Jeremiah Love, you better get up there and get him, because Tennessee might make that pick at 4. So when I'm doing my mock draft, and this is what Mel's saying, he goes, when I'm doing my mock draft, I'm thinking to and I'm, I guess, projecting my feelings onto what I heard Mel say. But he's like, when I'm doing my mock draft, that's what I have to think is about who's coming up to 3. And we know Arizona's history with Monty Ossenfort. And we know Arizona's a shithole and they need absolutely everything. And they have a new coach. So they're going to want to trade out. So when they trade out, they're going to, somebody's trying to jump the Titans. And the one name we have not heard connected to the Titans at all, Reuben Bain, Cam Ward went up to him and said, we're coming to get you. He's coming on a visit, I believe, next week. The one name we have not heard is Sonny Styles. And again, it's early, and I'm reading the tea leaves. I did hear, I think it was Schefter, who when he was on the McAfee show, he was talking about the fact that the Titans aren't going to take Jeremiah Love. And he's like, hey, we are a month away from the draft, and it could go either way. But right now, that's not the sentiment I'm getting. And I don't actually think that that's true. So When people say things like, well, we're a month away and a lot can change, and I don't think a lot can change. Knock on wood, a guy could get in a car accident and have a broken fibula, and now that might change something. A guy can get arrested at a strip club, and that might change something. But I think the Titans have a pretty good idea of who they want first, who they want second if that guy's gone, and who they want third. And that's all that matters because you're picking fourth. And Mendoza's going number 1. So they've already made up their mind who they're taking between Reese and Bailey. And I don't think that's going to change. Now, they may not be able to draft Reese. So if they have Reese 2, Bailey 3, and Reese is gone, but Bailey's there, they'll draft Bailey. That makes sense. I think that if they are in a position where they feel like, we believe that if Reese and Bailey are gone, Styles is our guy, they already know it. The debate between Sonny Styles and Jeremiah Love, it's already happened. They've already made up their mind. And the Titans haven't given us a hint really strongly one way or another of what they're doing, except they're telling everybody, Schefter, PK, I saw Easton Freeze write this, although I don't know if Easton heard it too, or if this is just Easton picking up the same tea leaves from PK and from Schefter, but he wrote at A to Z Sports, he doesn't think the Titans are going to take Jeremiah Love. So make of that what you will. I think Nick Suss's analysis leads me to believe that Nick Suss has been told that he doesn't think they're going to take Jeremiah Love either. By the way, I did yell at Paul this morning because all I hear with Paul when it comes to who the Titans should or shouldn't pick, it's all these stats and factoids about drafting a running back doesn't equal a championship, and drafting a linebacker in the first round doesn't equal a second contract. And I'm like, well, you do know that the stat with Reuben Bain is that there's never been a Pro Bowl edge rusher with arms as short as his. You might have to take one of them. And this is why I don't get caught up in that. I recognize this draft for what it is, which, quite frankly, at the top is a crappy draft. It is a bad year to have the 4th pick in the draft. Just like last year, and maybe Cam will become Mahomes, last year was a bad year to have the 1st pick and need a quarterback. This is a bad year to be picking 4th. So instead of saying, well, can't take a running back 4th, I'm saying you might have to take a running back 4th because it might be the best option. But stop telling me who I can't draft based on historical norms. Tell me who I can draft. Like, everyone wants to tell me why I can't draft Sonny Styles, why I can't draft Jeremiah Love. Okay, who should I draft? Somebody today said, Carnell Tate. What's wrong with Carnell Tate? 4.53. That's what's wrong with Carnell Tate. Unless you want to buy the Adam Schefter bull crap about, no, the general managers in the stands think he ran much faster. Carnell Tate's slow. He's not going 4th. Or if he does, they're stupid. Bill Polian said that the Colts had a computer when he was the general manager there. And if you ran at receiver slower than 4.5, they could not draft you in the first 3 rounds. And I told Robbie Stanley that because he hates the 40. And he was like, well, Mike Evans didn't run. Okay, that's one guy. And I think we all assumed Teteroa McMillan didn't run that fast either. And Teteroa McMillan just stayed away from running so that nobody knew how slow he was. But come on now. That's first thing. The second thing is the Ty Simpson Pro Day, which is going on as we speak at Alabama. And the Dan Orlovsky take heard round the world. And I give Dan Orlovsky credit because everybody heard it. Everybody knows that Ty Simpson's his guy. He thinks Ty Simpson's better than Mendoza. And there's a couple of people on ESPN that are echoing that sentiment that no, Ty Simpson can go higher than you think. In fact, in my latest mock draft, I had the Jets trading up from 16 to 11, jumping the Rams, although I don't think that the Rams would take Ty Simpson, and jumping everybody else who may try to get up there and get Ty Simpson before the Jets pick at 16. I have them moving up to 11 and taking Ty Simpson. And when I did that in my latest mock draft, I did it because, again, it feels like Ty Simpson is the only other quarterback who can go in the first round. Last year, we thought there were 3 quarterbacks who could go in the first round because everybody told us Shedeur Sanders was going to be a first-round pick. But in the end, it ended up being 2. I think Simpson's the only other guy that can go in the first round this year. And I think he will go in the first round. And I think he'll go to the Jets because I can see the owner, who's an idiot, saying, go get him. But I think we need to stop listening to ESPN about how good these guys are. And I think we need to be realistic about this. First of all, I do not think Ty Simpson is better than Fernando Mendoza. Why? Because I watched him play college football, and Fernando Mendoza is better. Period. You cannot tell me that Indiana had a great team and Alabama didn't have talented players to go around Ty Simpson. But here's the real question I have with Ty Simpson, because there's a lot of people now coming out saying Ty Simpson's not that bad. Some NFL people I hear agree with Dan Orlovsky. Mike Tannenbaum says that. I heard Kimberly Martin today on TV. She said he's not going in the top half of the first round, or he's not going at the top of the first round, but people are saying if you want to get Ty Simpson, the Steelers at 21 is probably the floor. Stop yourself for a second. Who picked second? We know the Raiders are taking Mendoza number 1. Who picked second? The Jets. What do the Jets need? A quarterback. Who picks third? Arizona picks third. What does Arizona need? A quarterback. The Browns pick 6th. What do the Browns need? Unless you're a Shedeur Sanders honk, they need a quarterback. Somebody explain this to me. Why is Ty Simpson the belle of the ball all of a sudden, but all those teams with high picks that need quarterbacks wouldn't take him? Well, Jared, they like him. They just don't think he's worth the 2nd overall pick. Nobody who projects as a franchise quarterback that a team thinks is a franchise quarterback when they need a quarterback falls in the draft like that. It doesn't happen. Not in today's era. Daniel Jones went 6th overall. And I remember everybody sitting there saying, what? Daniel Jones at 6. And the Giants had 3 first-round picks that year. And the old man said, if you think he's your guy, you take him. So if you're the Jets at 2 and you think Simpson's your guy at 16, you take him at 2. It's your starting quarterback. And for Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, if they think we're going to take him at 16, and that's our long-term plan at quarterback because we love Ty Simpson, and you just don't know it, but the Browns love him too, and they take him at 6, you're fucked. So I don't buy that general managers in the NFL love Ty Simpson. Because if they did, then he'd be gone at 2 or 3 or 6. And nobody thinks Ty Simpson is going at 2 or 3 or 6. Here's how it works. If a team loves a quarterback, they jump up to take him. The Bills love Josh Allen. They made 2 separate trades to be able to get up to number 7 to take Josh Allen. They looked at him. They said he's our franchise guy. We believe in him. He's going to get us fired if it doesn't work out. Let's mortgage the farm to go get him. Andy Reid moved up in order to get Patrick Mahomes. If you think he's your guy, you move up to get him. If you look at him and you're drooling over him the way Orlovsky is drooling over Simpson, you go up to get him. And you don't go up to 11 to get him. You go up to 3 to get him. And the Jets sit there at 2. So that's the first part of why I just don't buy it. If you are a quarterback who teams think, he can start for us, let's see. That's where you go at the end of the first round, or maybe the second round. That's where Lamar Jackson went. Baltimore took Lamar Jackson as a let's see. not a let's draft Lamar Jackson and put all our eggs in Lamar Jackson's basket. And if Lamar Jackson doesn't work, we're all fired. Buffalo did that with Josh Allen. Baltimore did not do that with Lamar Jackson. Baltimore took Hayden Hurst in the draft before they took Lamar Jackson. When you tell me 21 at Pittsburgh is where we had to look for Kenny Pickett to go off the board, Ty Simpson, you're telling me he's Kenny Pickett territory. You're telling me he's Jackson Dart territory. And those guys aren't, Pickett kind of stinks, but like those guys might be good, might be bad. I don't know. The Saints took Tyler Shuck in the second round. Tyler Shuck did everything you can as a rookie quarterback to establish himself. And I still think because he was a second round pick, the Saints are like, okay, well, let's see. So when it comes to Ty Simpson, for you people, and I'm not even talking to you people today. I'm really talking to the ESPN talking heads led by Dan Orlovsky that are like, oh, he's so good. I don't have a problem with you believing that. I believe that about Sam Darnold. You people got all pissed off, and I was right. And so I understand what it's like to really, really like a quarterback that nobody else likes. I get it. But when you're telling me that 12 general managers say the same thing, then I have to ask, why is he not going number 2 or number 3? If a third of the league loves him, I guarantee you one of those thirds is in the top 8 of the draft, and one of them's taking him. And it doesn't feel like anybody's taking him. So I think this is like the new thing to try to make the draft interesting. But Ty Simpson, we can debate him as a prospect. He's not better than Mendoza as a prospect. He's not going higher than Mendoza as a prospect. And if you're telling me you think he's going in the 20s, then there's no team that looks at him as an elite franchise quarterback. Speaking of ESPN, I saw something today on ESPN that I want to hit on here for a second, if I may. So I saw at ESPN, ESPN, they'll go out of their way to talk Cowboys no matter what. It's like Cowboys, Cowboys, Cowboys. So they flashed up a graphic today, this morning on Get Up, where they said, according to ESPN sources, Dallas made 3 separate offers to land Maxx Crosby. And that the final offer Dallas made to get Maxx Crosby was a 2026 first-round pick, which is 12th overall, and a 2026 second-round pick. And I said, okay. And so they brought that up, and then they debated around the table, should Dallas make the move for Maxx Crosby, which is a very ESPN thing to do. But I sat there, and it just, the draft nerd in me said, well, let me see how that actually computes from a number standpoint. Because Dallas's first-round pick's a couple picks better than Baltimore's. And a second this year is equal to a first next year because you have to wait on the pick the following year. And I think we all kind of believe that we all kind of believe the Ravens are going to be good this upcoming season. Then I looked at it. Dallas doesn't have a second-round pick. So I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. Dallas offered a second-round pick to the Raiders. Dallas doesn't have a second-round pick. They traded it at the deadline for Quinnen Williams. So how could Dallas have offered a 26 second-round pick? And that said, I think that this is so Dallas. Dallas loves finishing in second place. When Maxx Crosby got traded to the Ravens, all that came out was, boy, Dallas tried. They did the best they could, and they tried. Shame. And I laughed. And I laughed because I'm like, of course. Dallas loves to tell you, instead of, hey, we took on the $35 million contract, instead of that, it's, we tried. Give us credit for that. By the way, they can reacquire Maxx Crosby. No, we're good. We got Rashawn Gary. Just horseshit. And I wish people on TV, I have to ask, because I'm not on ESPN. Can you on TV And I know you may not be able to use the word horseshit on TV, but can you sit there on TV? Can we sit around the table on ESPN and Mike Greenberg says, okay, Mike Tannenbaum, okay, Kimberly Martin, okay, Bart Scott, okay, Dominique Foxworth. Dallas offered a first and a second for Maxx Crosby. Can somebody on the panel say Dallas doesn't have a second-round pick? Can somebody on the panel say, yeah, I don't buy that? I don't believe it. I don't believe Dallas did that. And so I want to just put that out there. Let's get to some of your reaction here. Joe says, Ty Simpson feels like J.J. McCarthy to me. I mean, not really. And I'll explain why not really. With J.J. McCarthy, I think there was some mystery. And the mystery was J.J. played at Michigan where they ran the ball and they played defense because that's what Harbaugh wants to do. And if you even look at the Chargers with Herbert, now Herbert throws the ball a lot more than he let J.J. McCarthy throw the ball. They also are losing games a lot more than he was losing games at Michigan. But if you look at how the Chargers are built, they want to run the ball too. His first round pick was a tackle when he already had a tackle, and his second first round pick was a running back. So Harbaugh wants to run the ball, and there is nothing wrong with running the ball. So I think the idea was McCarthy didn't throw it at Michigan because they didn't need McCarthy to throw it, whereas with Simpson threw it enough at Alabama. He just didn't throw it very well in a lot of games that mattered. He threw it well in the first Georgia game, which made people think that he might have been up there. But, I mean, I think I've seen enough of Ty Simpson to know that I'm not interested in Ty Simpson. I say this about guys like Mac Jones. When I say I believe Mac Jones is one of the 32 best quarterbacks on the planet. I believe Kyler Murray, and you know I hate Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is one of the 32 best quarterbacks on the planet. I don't know if I think Ty Simpson is one of the 32 best quarterbacks on the planet, or if I think that Ty Simpson is going to be one of the 32 best quarterbacks on the planet. He just didn't wow me in college. He was fine. I thought he needed to go back for another year, and then maybe he could have been a first-round guy. But no. So that's where I would say, I guess I disagree when you say he's like J.J. McCarthy. TDG says, I want him, but Jerry doesn't want him. No. Jerry wants him. Jerry wants Maxx Crosby. He just want to pay for it. That's why Jerry made the trade for George Pickens last year, because Jerry didn't have to pay him. It's like, hey, he's a great receiver, but he's a total troublemaker. How much? $3 million. Sold. I want him. Micah Parsons is one of the best pass rushers, if not the best defensive player outside of Myles Garrett in the NFL. How much? $40 million a year. No, I'm good. I'm okay. Thank you. Just don't want to pay for it, which is fine, but then don't act like I'm all in the way that Jerry does that. One person says, how does Bain match up to Robert Saleh's system? So this is something that does concern me. I think Ruben Bain is a 3-4 defensive end, and Robert Saleh runs a 4-3. And if you are a 3-4 defensive end, then in a 4-3, you usually move inside the D tackle. Sometimes you can move outside. Sometimes you can. If the Titans draft Ruben Bain, then the Titans are telling us that they think he can be a 4-3 defensive end. With his arms, I don't think Ruben Bain can do it. This guy says, just here for the bad takes. So what are the bad takes? You think Ty Simpson is going to go at the top of the draft? You think Dallas actually did offer a second-round pick to the Raiders that they don't have for Maxx Crosby? If the Cowboys really wanted Maxx Crosby, the Cowboys would have then made the deal after the deal fell through with the Ravens. So give me a break. Here for the bad takes. Let's see. Sam Darnold. He'll be a good quarterback. That's a take I got raked through the coals for. And, oh, my God. So I do think that this is an interesting question that Joe brings up that I've been asking since the second they drafted Cam Ward. Joe says, what is the plan for Cam Ward? Like, seriously. They screwed up the offensive line. They brought in Wan'Dale Robinson. Now what? So when the Titans hired Mike Borgonzi, he went to the Senior Bowl, and they asked him on a coach and general manager friendly show on NFL radio, a show I really like, by the way, called Moving the Chains, Pat Kerwin. They are not trying to rock the boat, and I get that. I understand it. And they asked him what he learned in Kansas City from the Mahomes situation. And he said what he learned was if you draft a young quarterback, you got to have a plan. And we had a plan for Mahomes. And even when we'd see him in practice and we'd want to break the plan and play him, Andy had a plan. And so they drafted Mahomes. They drafted Cam Ward, and I'm like, okay, so what's plan? And Mike Borgonzi treated it like it was some sort of super secret plan. But we got a plan. And, I mean, you can't tell me that the plan was to fire the head coach 6 weeks into the season, to have Mike McCoy be the interim coach, have a shitty line, shitty receivers, average running game, and be terrible around the young quarterback his first year. So then they hired Brian Dable, and I like that. But I'm with you guys. I'm like, who's going to play right guard? I think Austin Schlottman is the center. I don't feel like that is a good enough plan. And where are the dynamic offensive players that you need in order to help out the young quarterback? Right now, they've got an $8 million tight end who caught 19 passes last year. If you draft Jeremiah Love and you say, we're going to turn around and run the ball, and we're going to take the pressure off of Cam, and we want teams to say, hey, we don't know what they're going to do, Cam or Love, I get it. Nevada Josh says, who's going to be a better quarterback, Mendoza or Ward? Well, if you ask NFL executives, which ESPN did, they think Mendoza will be better than Cam. I also think as a prospect, Mendoza will be better than Cam. I also think the Raiders have done more to help out Mendoza. I mean, they really bought a core piece in Tyler Linderbaum. He's already got Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty. Trey Tucker at receiver, though. They could probably do a little bit better at receiver. I do believe Mendoza is going to be the better quarterback than Ward. If this were last year and the Titans had the first pick, I'd say just take Mendoza. And I'm not in love with Mendoza, but he, to me, profiles as a 1-1. I think Cam profiles more as a 15th pick in a draft. Not like a Ty Simpson, though. Ty Simpson is below that. Ty Simpson is well below that. Kelsey said with Mahomes, Andy Reid had a plan, and Andy, and she obviously capitalizes, Andy kept the plan in place. With Ward, they had no plan, but throw him in there and keep your fingers crossed. It does kind of feel that way. I mean, it feels like the Titans, they always talk about how smart they are, and then they go out and they do all the things that stupid teams do, and then reports come out that, no, they're actually stupid. At least with Brian Callahan, you knew he was stupid in live time because of that Pee Wee program. I mean, I saw that and I thought. And then he really showed his ass to everybody else when he didn't know the rules against Denver. Okay. Want to hit on a couple of things here. Number one, I want to hit on let's do the North Carolina job first and we'll do the Preds second. The North Carolina job. I owe North Carolina basketball an apology. Because I said on Thursday, when North Carolina was about to lose to VCU in regulation or tie or whatever, I said, if North Carolina loses this game, they ought to fire Hubert Davis. And I thought I was going to be on an island with that take. And the next morning I woke up, Dan Wolken Yahoo Sports said North Carolina needs to fire Hubert Davis. If they want to be a true blue blood, you got to fire Hubert Davis. It's not good enough. And then I saw the chorus of people on over the weekend saying, hey, North Carolina is considering firing Hubert Davis. And again, on Thursday, I said they didn't have the balls to fire Hubert Davis, and I believed it. And they fired his ass yesterday. And there was no question as to what happened. Hubert Davis in a statement said, I got fired. North Carolina fired me. So first off, good for North Carolina. That's what blue blood programs do. If you don't meet expectations at a blue blood program, you're gone. If you do not meet very high expectations, Mark Pope, thank you for the 96 title. Get the hell out of here. And when a blue blood holds on to a coach who you know you can't win with, who doesn't strike fear into opposing coaches in your conference, then you are really making us wonder, are you actually a blue blood? So, good on Carolina. Now to the hard part. Who's going to replace him? I am predicting that this coaching search is going to turn into a barnyard musical. And I'm going to tell you why. Because as soon as it comes open, all of a sudden it's who's going to be the next Carolina coach. When it's Carolina, Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, and there's not already a successor in place, when it is the New York Knicks or the LA Lakers or the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Yankees, it's always going to be a circus until it's not. And when those jobs come open, all of a sudden it's go get Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan had a great job in college and left it to go to the NBA a decade ago. College was a very different place a decade ago. And he's in the NBA making $6 million with no pressure to win. He's going to go to North Carolina? Go get Todd Golden, the guy that just won a title at Florida. Florida can pay more than North Carolina. This is what happens with all these. They all talk about these guys, and then these guys all sign contract extensions. Nate Oates will sign a contract extension because of this. Dusty May will sign another contract extension because of this. All the guys at places that can play their coach, that can pay their coach, that have had a little bit of success, every single one of them will get a new contract. And they'll take it because they don't want to move and they don't want the North Carolina expectations. So if you can get the Carolina money where you already are, you're probably going to do that. And what's going to happen is Carolina's going to get turned down by 2 or 3 guys. I asked Joe Rexrode yesterday, I said, if you were an odds maker in Vegas, who would you say is the odds-on favorite to be the next North Carolina coach? And he said Mark Byington, the Vanderbilt coach. And I can see it. Because I can see once you get over the fantasies of Phil Jackson and resurrecting John Wooden, and then you turn your attention to the college guys who have jobs that aren't as good as North Carolina, but can get contract extensions and more money at places that they already are, and so they're not going to move, that takes you into the next rung of coaches. And that rung of coaches is going to either be the guy that is incredibly impressive at a mid-major or the guy who's at a good job, but not necessarily a great job. And the idea of, whoo, Carolina is something. And I think that might be Byington. I don't know Byington. I've interviewed him a couple of times. What I know of him, I do like. I don't know if he's bleeding black and gold. I have no idea. There is no mid-major coach who is in the Sweet 16 this year. There's no mid-major coach who is going to go to the Final Four who you could say, that guy. So it does kind of limit your options. Now, I've told you, I think North Carolina should hire Josh Schertz, the head coach at St. Louis. Josh Schertz almost got the Louisville job 2 years ago at Indiana State. And I think it was because he was at Indiana State that he didn't get that job. Well, now he's at St. Louis, and he's won at St. Louis similarly to how he won at Indiana State. So now let's give him the Carolina resources. And if I was athletic director, we'd hire Josh Schertz, and he'd be having a press conference at the Dean Dome today. So all of this toiling in the wind about what are our recruits going to do, where are we getting our NIL money, what are we going to, that's over with. Go get him, Josh Schertz. But what's going to happen is North Carolina is going to go after Billy Donovan. He's going to say no. They're going to go after Nate Oates. He's going to sign a contract extension. They're going to go after Todd Golden. He's going to sign a contract extension. Maybe they go get TJ Oselberger at Iowa State. I think he deserves a new job. But I could see him getting a huge deal to stay at Iowa State. So then that takes me back to Byington. If I was Candace Lee, and I'm not Candace Lee, but if I was Candace Lee, and I don't know what Mark Byington's contract is, and neither do you, because Vanderbilt is a private school. And so we also don't know what his buyout is. But I would assume that it's probably in the millions. Now, I don't think it's like 15 million. I think Todd Golden is somewhere around there, or 10 million, like Nate Oates. But I do think that it's probably in the millions. If I was Candace Lee and North Carolina called and made an offer on Mark Byington, and Mark Byington came to me and said, hey, it's Carolina and I'm taking the job, I'd be fine with it. And I mean this with all due respect to Byington, but I'd be okay with it because I'd turn around and go hire Josh Schertz. And because Byington, we assume, has a buyout in the millions, we don't know how many millions, but it's in the millions, I would just take that money that North Carolina is going to have to pay us to hire Mark Byington, and I just stick it to our NIL and just go get more players for Josh Schertz. So that's what I would do. And I know Mark Byington is much better than Jerry Stackhouse. And I think Mark Byington is a good coach. But the one thing I want to caution everybody on is through 2 years at Vanderbilt, Mark Byington has not been a transcendent coach. He's been good. They made the NCAA tournament twice. He's had a lot of NIL money to do it. He's recruited the right guys for the most part. But in their 2 tournament losses, they lost games in which I thought they should have won. They lost to St. Mary's last year. They should have won that game. And then on Saturday against Nebraska, and it's one of 19 things that happened that cost them the game. From the horrendous start they got off to the ball rattling out of the basket. Tyler Tanner missed some free throws. Byington didn't call timeout at the end. I mean, we can rehash it. But in all of those 3 tournament games, I think Byington has underwhelmed. So if you get the Carolina job, I'm happy for you. I want Byington to stay at Vanderbilt. I think Byington's a good coach. But if you get the Carolina job, I'm not going to begrudge you. I'm also not going to chase you. Because I already know if they hire my coach, I don't even know what his buyout is. I assume it's probably somewhere between $3 million and $10 million. So let's say it's $8 million. Or let's say it's $6 million. I don't know. And Byington goes to Carolina, and Carolina writes me a $6 million check. Well, fuck. Now I just got Josh Schertz, who I think is as good of a coach, and I'm going to have more NIL money. That's why I look at it. Caleb says if Wilson doesn't get hurt, UNC is more than likely still playing, and this isn't even a thing. If that hadn't happened, if we had another quarter, if the ball hadn't gone, that's what losers say. And this is North Carolina. You're supposed to figure that out. Okay, to the Predators. The Predators are smoking hot. And I looked at Money Puck, and Money Puck says as of now, the Predators have a 59% chance of making the playoffs. And the Predators, if they win tomorrow night against the New Jersey Devils, will have a 70% chance of making the playoffs. I'm just going to tell you how I see it right now, because I feel like I've done enough of this over the years where I kind of have a good feel for how things are going to shake out. You know, at this time of the year and with the percentages and the schedule remaining and the way the team's playing and everything else, this team's making the playoffs. So as of right now, the Predators are in the second wild card spot in the Western Conference, 3 points clear of a playoff spot, 5 points clear of Seattle, who has a game in hand. LA is 3 points behind them. They've each played 71 games. The Predators are making the playoffs. And they're making the playoffs because they've won 5 in a row. And they're going to make the playoffs because they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. And they're going to make the playoffs because the old pawpaws, Steven Stamkos, Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, even to a certain extent Jonathan Marchessault, have started doing what the old pawpaws are supposed to do. And just like in 2023, just like in 2021, that call up from Milwaukee has provided a certain amount of juice. We saw this in 21 when I think the team was ravaged with COVID. And so they had to call up Matthew Olivier, and they had to call up Tanner Jeannot, and they had to call up Alexander Carrier, and they had to call all those guys up. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, these guys actually fit in the lineup. In 2023, when they decided to wave the white flag on the season, and they got all those picks, and they traded away Granlund, and they traded away Ekholm, and they traded away Nino Niederreiter, and they traded away pretty much everybody they could. And all these guys came up from Milwaukee, like Luke Evangelista, and they played pretty well. And this has happened again. What's happened this year? The injection from Milwaukee, just like Kiefer Sherwood and Mark Jankowski a couple years ago, Matthew Wood, Ryan Ufko, Zach LaRue, these guys have come up here and made a difference. And I'm going to say this. I am nervous to say this. I think Matthew Wood might pop. Like, I think Matthew Wood might be really fucking good. And I said this last year when everybody was getting on Trotz. And at the beginning of this year, I got on Trotz because Trotz looked like he was off in La La Land. But I said this to Joe, and Joe Rexroad got all mad. I said, again, with Trotz, the way to judge him is to look at these young guys that he's rebuilt this team around. And if they pop, then you got to give him his due. And it looks like Matthew Wood's a player. And so if Tanner Molendyke is as good as they think he is, and Brady Martin steps into the lineup next year as your number 2 center behind Ryan O'Reilly, and he pops, you might have something there. The problem is the fucking goalie. Now, last night, they were so good that it didn't matter who was in net. I could have been in net last night. They scored 5 goals on their first 7 shots. When I got in the car last night, it was 3-1. And I thought to myself, wow, I don't even think Soros can screw this up. And immediately, they scored another goal. I got out of the car, and it was 5-1. I'm like, wait a minute, what? They are hot. And I don't think they're going to beat Colorado in the playoffs because I think being hot and having this youthful influx and these old pawpaws with something to play for can only carry you so far. And the Colorado Avalanche are the Colorado Avalanche, and they're really good. But I'm excited. I'm excited for tomorrow night. I'm excited for a shot at the playoffs. I'm excited if they make the playoffs. And as I said yesterday, if the Predators make the playoffs, we will do post-game shows right here on the Stillman and Company program. But I'm here to tell you right now, I think they're making the playoffs. Adam in Portland says, you said last week you didn't think they would make the playoffs. Your takes are all over the place these days. Yes, last week, before they beat Seattle before they beat Vegas, before they beat Chicago, before they beat San Jose. Yes, I did say those things. That's it for us. We're out of here. Okay, I'm off to the beach, family vacation. I may do a show tomorrow. So just get your notifications on just in case, and I will take all my equipment with me. So if something breaks, you know, Stillman and Company will be live, baby. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Good luck to the Predators. Oh, baseball season. Hold on. Let me just say this. Baseball season. Opening night is tonight. The game is on Netflix, which I hate, but we've already lost the war with the streaming, so it is what it is. The Braves open on Friday. I'm excited. I don't care if the Braves pitching staff is a mess. I believe they'll figure that out. Ronald Acuna is back, and I did sign up for Braves Vision. And it was really easy. Braves.tv. I just signed up, $99 for the whole season. And then I was like, how am I going to be able to watch this on the TV? It's easy. MLB app on the TV. Just log in, and it gives you the Braves games. And I'm ready to go for Friday night. So with that, as TDG says, go Braves. I'm trying to think in my head, like, can I pick the Braves? I did pick the Braves correctly in 2021 to win the World Series. It's hard to pick against the Dodgers because they have so much more money than everybody else. But the Mets also have a bunch of money, and they never win anything. So I'm going to say, like in my gut, I'm going to say that the Dodgers don't win. I would take the field over the Dodgers, but man, they are freaking stacked. And I think it's good for baseball. I do. I thought that the Yankees and the Red Sox going out and getting every good player when I was a kid was good for baseball. I think this is the same thing. That's it for us. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Enjoy the baseball. Enjoy the hockey. We'll be back. Stillman and Company right here on the 440 Sports Network.